this. There comes a moment in every woman's life when God calls her to stop chasing attention and start commanding respect. Not with her mouth, not with her body, but with her detachment. And when I say detachment, I'm not talking about bitterness or brokenness. I'm talking about a spiritual evolution, a shift in posture, a holy silence, a calm confidence that comes when a woman finally stops begging to be seen and starts knowing who she is in the dark. You see, culture tells us to cling, to chase, to compromise our worth just to feel chosen. But God says, be still and know. And let me tell you something that the enemy does not want you to understand. Men are extremely attracted to women who detach. Not because she's playing games, but because she's playing by heaven's rules now. There is power in your absence, healing in your silence, and beauty in your boundaries. Young man, he said he looks at you as if your boundaries, the kind of beauty that makes a man question, not just your presence, but his own posture. When a woman detaches, she starts disrupting patterns. She breaks generational chains of desperation and dysfunction. She reintroduces herself to her identity, and that, my sister, is where the fire starts. That's where the woman who once clung in fear now walks in discernment. That's where the attraction doesn't just come from curves or conversations, but from the quiet, unshakable glory of God resting on her. This message is not about manipulation, it's about maturity. It's not about pushing people away, it's about pulling yourself inward, where the Holy Spirit reshapes what love is supposed to feel like. If you've been feeling unseen, overlooked, or used, I came to remind you, you don't need to hold tighter. You need to let go. Because the right one won't require you to lose yourself to gain their attention. So tonight, we're going to talk about it. We're going to unlearn the lies, release the desperation, and reclaim the dignity that comes with divine detachment. Because when you stop trying to prove your worth to a man, you start attracting the kind of man who's already praying for a woman like you. Detachment is not disinterest, it's discernment. There's a big difference between a woman who is emotionally numb and one who is spiritually aware. The world will try to convince you that when you detach, you're cold, you're unavailable, you're playing games. But detachment, when it's led by the Spirit, is not a defense mechanism, it's divine discernment. It's the moment when you stop reacting and start responding. When you stop trying to force a connection and begin trusting the disconnection. You see, the woman who detaches is not empty, she's full. Full of awareness, full of identity, full of clarity. And because she's full, she no longer allows just anyone to come and draw from her. She no longer gives her energy to anything that subtracts from her peace. Discernment has taught her that presence doesn't equal purpose. That just because someone wants access to her doesn't mean they're assigned to her. Detachment in its holy form is prophetic. It sees what the natural eye cannot. It hears the red flags in between the words. It senses when a person's spirit is not aligned with their intention. And because a discerning woman is led by God, she doesn't need closure to move forward. She doesn't need constant communication to feel valued. She doesn't need to chase a man to feel loved. When a woman starts operating in discernment, her spirit gets quieter, but her standards get louder. And the woman in Calder must become unstoppable. But before a man starts operating in discernment, her spirit gets quieter, but her standards she's no longer obsessed with being chosen because she already knows she's called. She's no longer eager to explain herself because she understands that peace needs no because she recognizes that being connected to the wrong person is more dangerous than being alone. Sis, this kind of detachment comes with a price. It requires solitude, healing, and a whole lot of dying to the ego that once craved attention. But when God takes you through the process, He sharpens your spirit. You start picking up on spiritual subtleties. You can feel when a conversation is counterfeit. You can sense when a man is more fascinated with your image than your anointing. And instead of trying to convince him to stay, you release him with grace, knowing that anything God removes is a setup for what He's about to restore. Detachment is a boundary. It's a sacred line that says, you may want me, but I don't need to be needed. And in a world where women are conditioned to fear rejection, the woman who detaches becomes dangerous to the enemy because she's no longer bait. She's no longer moved by sweet nothings. She's no longer building her future on temporary attention. Discernment teaches her the value of her energy. It teaches her the art of silence. It teaches her that she can feel deeply and still walk away quietly. That she can love without attachment. That she can honor God by honoring herself. And that right there is the power of a woman who no longer needs to scream her worth because she knows it. A detached woman is emotionally self-governed, not emotionally unavailable. There is a narrative that needs to be broken. This idea that when a woman is calm, centered, and not reacting to everything, she must be emotionally unavailable. But the truth is, a detached woman is often the most emotionally available, just not to everyone. She's available to herself. She's available to God. She's available to relationships that honor her boundaries and meet her in maturity. What she's not available to anymore is chaos. She's not entertaining men who confuse emotional intensity with emotional intimacy. She's not giving all of her softness to people who haven't earned access to her heart. She's not in the business of begging someone to understand her worth, because she's no longer on the roller coaster of emotional instability. She's grounded in emotional governance. You see, there's a transformation that happens when a woman goes through heartbreak, trauma, disappointment, and chooses not to become bitter but better. She learns how to sit with her emotions without being ruled by them. She doesn't suppress how she feels. She processes it in private and prays through it in silence. So by the time someone comes around trying to provoke her or push her buttons, they find nothing but peace. And that peace is what confuses people who are used to access through dysfunction. Emotional self-governance doesn't mean she doesn't feel. It means she's done bleeding for people who only ever show up to watch her suffer. It means she can cry and still walk away. It means she can care and still say no. It means she can love someone and still choose herself when the love becomes laced with disrespect. The detached woman doesn't check her phone every 5 minutes waiting for a text because she's not obsessed with being pursued. She's rooted in being aligned. She doesn't give 100% of her spirit to someone giving her 30% of their consistency. She doesn't confuse mixed signals with mystery. She reads them as misalignment and moves on. She's emotionally self-governed because she's been through the wilderness of her emotions. She's learned how to sit in silence and face her own shadows. She's prayed through rejection. She's cried through disappointments. And now she knows what peace feels like, so she refuses to give it up for a man who only knows how to stir up her fears. This woman doesn't need constant validation to feel secure. She doesn't need a relationship to feel fulfilled. She doesn't need a title to feel treasured, because her identity is not tied to who calls her girlfriend or wife. It's tied to the God who calls her daughter. And because of that, she's dangerous to a man who operates in emotional manipulation. He can't guilt her. He can't gaslight her. He can't love bomb her into submission. She sees it all and still chooses stillness. That kind of emotional regulation intimidates men who feed on chaos, but it deeply attracts the kind of man who's walking in emotional maturity himself. There's something radiant about a woman who has authority over her emotions. She's magnetic, not because she's inaccessible, but because she's selective. She's attractive, not because she's distant, but because she's discerning. She's powerful, not because she's hard, but because she's whole. So no, she's not emotionally unavailable. She's just unavailable to what doesn't serve her growth or calling or her peace. She's not cold, she's just careful. She's not shut down, she's simply selective. And in that stillness, in that restraint, she reveals the quiet strength of a woman who refuses to sacrifice her emotional health for temporary attention. Detachment breaks the cycle of toxic validation seeking. Every woman at some point in her life has faced the temptation to shrink herself just to be accepted, to bend her boundaries for a breadcrumb of attention, to overextend her heart just to feel seen. That cycle of seeking validation, especially from emotionally unavailable men, is exhausting, and it's spiritual warfare in disguise. But the moment a woman detaches, she starts breaking that cycle. Detachment is not passive, it is powerful. It's the active decision to no longer allow your worth to be confirmed by how someone else treats you. When a woman detaches, she's not running away, she's finally standing in place. She's no longer driven by the hunger to be needed. She's no longer anxiously waiting for someone to see what God already affirmed. She's not trying to be everything to everyone. She's choosing to be whole in herself. Toxic validation seeking sounds like, if he compliments me, I'm beautiful. If he chooses me, I'm worthy. If he texts me back, I'm enough. But detachment rewrites the script. I'm beautiful because I was fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm worthy because I was chosen before the foundations of the earth. I'm enough because God lives inside of me. When a woman gets tired of performing for love, she starts resting in her identity. And that rest becomes her power. She no longer exhausts herself trying to chase affection. She stops interpreting silence as punishment and starts recognizing it as protection. Because not everyone who ignores you is rejecting you. Sometimes heaven is redirecting you. Romanticizing red flags. You stop auditioning for roles you were never created to play. You stop letting inconsistency feel like mystery and start calling it what it is, confusion. And God is not the author of confusion. You begin to realize that when people leave, they're not taking your worth with them. When the calls slow down, your identity doesn't. When you don't get chosen, it's not rejection, it's redirection. You don't get chosen, it's not rejection, it's redirection. Right? And sometimes you have to stop giving too much energy to the people who make you feel like you're not enough or you shouldn't be anyway. But you are special when you describe. And people don't agree with. Detachment frees you from obsessing over how people feel about you and shifts your focus back to how God sees you. When you feel that it is only you who can change, it becomes easier for you to do the deepest. The woman who detaches learns how to validate herself in the presence of God. She doesn't need the constant highs and lows of toxic attention anymore. She's not addicted to feeling wanted. She's grounded in being whole. And that grounding gives her the courage to say, I don't chase, I don't beg, I don't perform. I attract what aligns and release what confuses. It's not that she doesn't desire connection, it's that she refuses to be trapped in cycles that feed on her insecurity. It's not that she doesn't desire connection, it's that she refuses to be trapped in cycles that feed on her insecurity. She's tasted the peace of being emotionally free, and she refuses to trade it for a relationship that costs her her voice. And here's what happens. The moment she steps out of the cycle of toxic validation seeking, the enemy loses his grip, because he can't use loneliness to manipulate her anymore. He can't use silence to scare her. He can't use false love to seduce her. She's no longer triggered by the absence of a man. She's anchored in the presence of God. Detachment doesn't mean she's hard. It means she's healed. It doesn't mean she doesn't care. It means she finally cares enough about herself to walk away from what dishonors her. And when you break that cycle, you break the generational pattern. You stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you. You stop seeking validation from men who never even saw the real you. And when that woman walks into a room, her silence speaks louder than her scream ever did. She carries herself differently. She's not thirsty, she's full. Not perfect, but present. Not desperate, but discerning. And in that detachment, she finally finds the peace that chasing never gave her. Men are drawn to the confidence of a woman who doesn't center her life around them. There is something undeniably magnetic about a woman who moves through life with confidence, not the kind that's loud and performative, but the kind that is rooted in identity. The kind that doesn't flinch when he stops texting. The kind that doesn't fall apart when he pulls back. The kind that doesn't orbit around a man's attention because her life has already been anchored in purpose. That's the kind of confidence that draws men in. Not desperation, not obsession, but a holy self-assurance. You see, the woman who detaches isn't playing games. She's just not placing a man at the center of her universe. Her world doesn't revolve around whether or not he likes her, calls her, chooses her, or validates her. She has plans, she has purpose, she has peace. And when a man approaches her, he realizes he's not the sun in her sky. He's a guest in her atmosphere. This kind of woman doesn't need constant reassurance because she's already rooted in divine affirmation. She doesn't need someone to complete her. She invites someone to complement her, to make a man stay. And here's what makes her so powerful. She doesn't need him. And because of that, he wants to earn her presence, not through control, but through consistency. Not through promises, but through proof. She doesn't throw herself into relationships hoping to be chosen. She evaluates, observes, and allows herself to be pursued with intention. There is a deep spiritual lesson in this. When a woman no longer centers her life around a man, she starts centering it around God. And that's when things shift. She becomes more discerning, more selective, more aligned. And that alignment sends a message that even silence can't hide. I am not afraid to be alone. I am afraid to be attached to something that costs me my calling. A woman like that is attractive to the kind of man who isn't intimidated by strength, but inspired by it. He doesn't want someone who loses herself in the relationship. He wants a woman who brings her full self to the table. A woman with standards, a woman with a life, a woman with depth. But let's be real. This same confidence that draws in the right man will repel the wrong one. The one who's used to women begging for his attention. The one who thrives on emotional dependency. The one who feels powerful when a woman revolves her world around him. He won't know what to do with a woman who can enjoy his presence, but does not require it. And that's okay, because she's not here to impress. She's here to align. She's not adjusting her life to fit into someone else's timeline. She's moving at heaven's pace. And if he can't keep up, he's not her delay. He's her revelation. There is a certain kind of silence that surrounds a woman who doesn't make a man her mission. A quiet strength, a steady calm, and it speaks volumes. It says, I've cried the tears. I've done the inner work. I've learned how to live without chasing, and now I attract. I don't chase. I allow. I don't perform. That confidence becomes a mirror. It reflects back to the man whether or not he's ready for that kind of woman. Some will rise, some will retreat, but either way, she won't be moved. She's already in motion. She's already aligned. She's already walking in purpose. And only a man with purpose himself will recognize the value of her pace. Detachment reveals whether a man wants your presence or your submission. There's a reason God sometimes calls a woman to pull back, to detach. It's not to confuse the man. It's to clarify his intentions. Because there's a big difference between a man who desires your presence and one who demands your submission. And the only way to truly see the difference is to detach, to step back, to pause the overgiving, to withhold the over-explaining, to stop carrying the emotional weight of the connection and just observe. When a woman detaches, she removes the illusions. She stops doing all the emotional labor. She stops running to fix what he keeps breaking. She stops initiating every conversation, driving every commitment, and anchoring every storm. She no longer throws herself into proving her worth. She just becomes still. And in that stillness, what's real starts to show. If a man only wanted you because you made his life easier, your detachment will feel like a threat. If he was in love with your submission, not your soul, then your stillness.
Let's stay connected, stay positive, and grow together. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Stay safe, stay inspired, and see you in the next video.